Are you ready, kids? Get your parents' permission, check your mailbox, and grab your shopping cart. It's time for the Adventures in Collecting podcast.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Dave. Welcome to Adventures in Collecting, where we talk toy news, culture, and hauls,
along with our journeys as collectors. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Adventures in Collecting.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, Eric. Whoa,
I keep mixing it up. I don't want anybody to think that they're on an old episode.
Whoa, that one actually caught me off guard because everyone that's listening will have just heard the hot. Oh no, we actually don't do that anymore. Remember when our intro was "Hi, Eric. Hi, Dave."
Yeah.
Remember that way back, early days.
Usually with a long pause in between.
Yes. Yeah, we should go back to that one day. Just randomly throw in the original intro.
The next episode with a zero, 2 zeros at the end or whatever, right?
Yeah, maybe. We're coming up on that soon. Well, We'll get to that. So Dave, I would like you to tell me a word that rhymes with steed. And tell me what to do with it.
Oh, bury the lead. Don't bury the lead.
Got him.
I was are you making sourdough? What are we doing here? I was is this we're getting to a pizza reference? Is that where we're...
Oh, no, not yet.
I thought that's what you were...
But that's a great segue, Dave.
Yeah.
Ahead of his annual Glyos and Music celebration, we're thrilled to welcome the wizard behind the Knights of the Slice, Card Slicers, and of course, Zstar7. Back to the show. You know him as Toy Pizza, but we affectionately just call him Jesse. Welcome back to the pod, Jesse DeStasio.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here with New Jersey's finest. I would put you guys up there with Michael of Jersey. He's a sandwich procurer.
Yes.
You know of him?
Yes.
So the three of you together, it's a trifecta of Jersey excellence. And now you'll probably tell me, we've moved. We don't live there anymore.
No,
that's fair too.
We are still in New Jersey.
Still in New Jersey.
And
it's funny because I am now happy to know that I'm not the only person that calls him New Jersey Michael.
Yeah. There's a lot of, Michael of New Jersey. There's a lot of, he deserves an esteemed moniker. So I think we put respect on his name whenever we can.
Mm-hmm.
We do. And his way is phenomenal. Michael's way. Michael's way is a hell of a way to enjoy a classy sandwich. So yeah,
absolutely.
Shouts to Michael.
If it's good enough for Danny DeVito, I'm okay with it.
Nothing quite says New Jersey like Danny DeVito hawking a sub. That's
it's just
that's how you know it's good.
Yeah,
it's just missing a Springsteen song in the background or something.
So before we hop into all of the wonderful Toy Pizza goodness, it's been a while since you've been on the show. So what are you collecting these days, and what are some of your recent pickups?
So in terms of what I'm collecting, I would say not much, right? I have gone through this very odd episode 1 rabbit hole, which I think all of us are doing.
Yeah.
Because it's the 25th anniversary, and episode 1 was 25 years roughly after the first Star Wars film came out, and I think it's back in the cultural zeitgeist because that was kind of the end of history at that very moment, right?
Yeah.
You had, there's the famous charlatan Francis Fukuyama, who declared, around the same time, this is the end of history. Liberal democracy has won. We've solved all of the world's problems. And from this point on, at the end of the 20th century, we will just kind of gradually continue to become a perfected species with the basic parameters that we've achieved here at the end of 1999 roughly. And I think that was absolutely incorrect, demonstrably an incorrect assumption. But I do think of, the turn of the century as being really a schism in world culture in many ways.
Yeah.
And also our lives having sort of grown up during this period and the monstrosity that is being alive currently in this moment.
The daily waking horror.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think episode 1 is kind of the last worldwide cultural moment. Western world, obviously there's parts of the globe that couldn't give a shit about Star Wars. But for the general English-speaking Western world, this was the last time there was a monoculture for anything. And I'll give you an example. 1999 was also the year The Matrix came out, right?
Yeah.
Huge film, did big box office. Fantastic film, still holds up. It's great. It's a piece of cinema. But I remember seeing The Matrix and going to work the next day and being like, oh my God, you guys have to go see The Matrix. And everyone was like, I don't know what that is. I'd never heard of that. It was a bit of a sleeper hit. Comparatively, every single person I worked with at that restaurant, whether they were in their 60s or 18 and a hostess, everyone had an opinion on episode 1, had gone to see it, was planning to go see it, hated it, loved it. Like, whatever the case may be, it was a unifying cultural moment. Compared to something like The Matrix, which also came out the same year, probably has aged a hell of a lot better. But at the time when that came out, it was still kind of a unknown underground thing. So, I've been sort of like, dare I say, nostalgic and thinking back about this film and this kind of freeze frame of time where, we were probably in our late teens, early 20s, things like that. And I think that was it. I think that was the goodbye kiss to the world as it had been since probably, the post-World War II era. And does that make Jar Jar any more tolerable? No.
Misa think he aged well.
Yeah, still a lot of problems there.
Yeah.
It's still not a well-written movie, but seeing it on the big screen was interesting. So yeah, I've been kind of like, I avoided almost everything episode 1 product-wise when it came out. I think I had a Darth Maul, and then I was just not interested in the various senators and political action figures they had. But I've since gone back, and it was really the end of an era, and there are some really fantastic figures. I think design-wise, visually, there's so much to love about that film. There just wasn't a story. There wasn't good characters to kind of back it up. So that's what I've been collecting. That's where my mind's at. I welcome your retorts.
No, I mean,
fire when ready.
Literally, the most recent toy that I got in the mail was something I ordered on May 4th. Took a while to ship, but I ordered the Droid Factory TC-14 from episode 1. So that nice chromed out, carrying a very suspect looking bottle.
It's a protocol dildo salesman. I believe.
Yes, exactly. It is now proudly displayed in my my little Star Wars area over there now.
Yeah,
but yeah, no. I mean, I look back on that film honestly, like, and we've talked about this on the show actually, especially those red cards. Like those Darth Maul cards, and like even before that, on those green Power of the Force cards, like the preview figures when you could get like Mace Windu, and you could get who didn't have a purple lightsaber as in the figure. You had a blue one, and you had the battle droid on the stap, and like there were all these really, really great, like you said, amazing designs, like great looking figures. And I think I was the right age in 1999 where like I didn't care about the quality of the film. I was just like, oh my God, I'm seeing a new Star Wars movie, in theaters. This is what it must have been like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I look back on it rather fondly.
I was 18, so the magic didn't wear off till episode 2 for me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And it's interesting. This has sort of spurred me to do my own alternative episode 1 mini comic, and now it is. I think I've done like 4 chapters, and now it's become a sort of group project within the Patreon where another patron is going to take over for the next chapter, and then we're going to keep passing it around.
Cool.
And kind of play a game of telephone and just rewrite episode 1, as if it had like a good story and sort of good characters and things like that. Sorry, I'm being attacked by a cat at the moment.
That's okay.
Yeah, no worries.
We get lots of animal friends on the show, usually showing up in people's laps, people's shoulders.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this on the pod too, where like the greatest kind of post-mortem for episode 1 was when the DVD came out and it had that like feature-length documentary about the making of episode 1, and you see the moment where like hubris really hit George Lucas when he points at the storyboard of Jar Jar and goes, "This is the make or break point. The movie's either going to be great or not right here."
I would say that documentary is one of the best film behind the scenes documentary ever made. It's absolutely. It's currently on YouTube in its entirety, and it is a fantastic watch. And I think they're pretty honest about what was the driving force and the motivation behind it. It was selling ILM as a all digital solution for filmmaking, and this was a test balloon, and everything kind of was secondary to that. Interestingly enough, if you continue on with those documentaries and you watch the episode 2 and episode 3, they become really a chore to get through because there's so much less practical stuff to look at. It literally becomes, you're looking at animators tweaking splines and things like that in the episode 2 and 3 documentaries as they fully shift to digital. And, initially episode 1 was going to be an entirely digital film, and they had to sort of backtrack and start ordering. I know I said film already, but I guess they had to order celluloid or whatever the right term is, and the digital cameras were just not up to snuff to film the entire movie. I think certainly by episode 3, but possibly by episode 2, they had the technology advanced where they could shoot everything digitally. But that's also part of the cultural legacy here. This was on the forefront of the digital versus film conversation, and it's a really powerful sort of watermark for these things.
Yeah,
and
sure. And regardless of how you feel about the overall film, I mean, it is beautiful. Like it is a gorgeously shot film. Like it just is. And I mean, that's one of those things where, to your point, like it or not, it is it's a hallmark, for that very, very reason.
So last year, getting back to the toys, getting back to the Knights of the Slice, we're getting into them. Last year, you debuted a new, more articulated body for the Knights of the Slice. What's it been like designing on the new body?
So we got to sort of, I think, 3 years ago, we did the first teaser image and the prototype for the Gauss armor, which was our foray into not really super articulated, but a more articulated body type for Knights of the Slice. And by last year, we had, actual figures of the Gauss armor that we could share with everybody, and that went over really well. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about Sia Daggers and Cray, which is the current figure that we're kind of undertaking. But it's been endlessly more complicated and expensive to do these figures, but I think more rewarding in many ways. And I think it has brought in an entirely new audience. I think that, previously, before the Gauss armor, the premise in front of a potential customer was, why are these figures so expensive and they don't have, elbows and knees, right? That could be what somebody would say upon seeing one of my creations. And I think now the premise is, hey, these figures are just as expensive as everything else that's in the mass market stores. And there's a bunch more articulation, and there's this amazing GLiOS compatibility thanks to the GLiOS system, and I can swap parts. And I think it's starting to, become a little more enticing of a, of an offering to people that are out there that maybe have not collected a GLiOS figure ever, or not familiar with O'Neill design. So I think it was a very hard-won battle with Gauss Armor. I think Cray and the Sea of Daggers is proving to be equally challenging, but I think ultimately these are worth the struggle, and I think it has sort of elevated my game and elevated what I'm putting out there into the universe. So I'm quite happy, and I'm quite excited for the next iteration.
Well, speaking of what you're doing with the Gauss Armor, you recently added some figures that look like they are right out of dystopian Detroit. Tell us about the two new releases.
Yes, these are legally distinct original creations. If they remind anybody of certain films, that's a complete coincidence, I assure you. But we have introduced the Robo-Sen and his superior officer, Policia. And these are shot in a really beautiful metallic blue. And unrelated to these two figures, the first rated R movie I ever saw was a film called RoboCop. And I was 7 years old at the time, and my older brother took me to see it and kind of lied to my parents about what it was about. And when I came home from the theater, I had bitten a hole in the collar of my shirt from all the very traumatic, very Dutch things I had witnessed on screen. But I was hooked. It was, that's like, just, it's like a type of drug to see Verhoeven at his peak on screen at such a formidable age. It made, I was instantly like obsessed with this idea and this character. So many years later, in an unrelated fashion, I happen to have these two figures offered in my store. And again, any connections that anybody draws between them is purely coincidental.
So I'm going to put Dave on the spot here because he has my. So first of all, I saw the movie at a very young age too, because Dave, being my very cool older brother, let me watch things that I wasn't supposed to watch.
I saw it at a slightly.
It's probably why I am the way I am today. But Dave actually has my favorite RoboCop story. He got to see something very special when he was out in California at a particular film archive when you were at USC.
Oh, is that when I first saw the director's cut before it was out?
Yeah.
Like it was a Criterion like Laserdisc at the time?
Yeah, before it was more
it was like widely,
widely
unless you
distributed.
had the Criterion Laserdisc.
And I remember when you came home and you were like, you're never going to believe, because this is before cell phones and everything. So like, we were, not in touch for a little bit. And he was out in California for all this time. And the one thing he couldn't wait to tell me about was the director's cut of RoboCop and how extremely more violent it was.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a man explode? Well, you can.
Well, you can.
Yeah, you can see a man fly too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved, and Kenner, right? I think Kenner was the company that was making the RoboCop toys back in the
Correct,
day.
Yes.
Yeah, those toys are awesome. Glow in the dark RoboCop is among one of my favorite things I think I ever had.
With like the armor shield on his forearm.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
And they had the caps in the back.
Yep. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. And you could actually,
they had the rolls of caps.
Right. I forgot about that. But yeah, I just remember
we were there was a moment where we were very obsessed with getting gunfire in the hands of kids, like simulated gunfire. Mm-hmm. You had the Toy Biz Punisher, you had Cops and Crooks, all those figures had caps, RoboCop. We were really like honing in on getting children used to the sound of gunfire within the home. I don't know why, but it seemed to be an imperative.
You could go to the dollar store and you can get a cap gun, a bunch of caps, and candy cigarettes.
Or you could get like the Rambo like machine gun where when you pulled the trigger it just sounded like a lawnmower trying to turn over.
Yeah. The Laramie automatic Uzis and stuff that I think got a couple people suicided by cop, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You live and you or I was gonna say you live and you learn, but I guess you don't always live, but you always learn. Something like that.
Yeah, a teachable moment.
There,
Mm-hmm.
go with that.
Yeah, so we teased talking about Sea of Daggers. So late last year, the latest crowdfunding campaign wrapped up. Any update on when the supporters will start to see those figures?
I'm always hesitant to kind of give a ship date because those will almost always move. I think our campaign promised December of this year. I think we're going to beat that by quite a bit. As far as where we are with production, tooling has begun. We're probably about, I would say, a week or 2 weeks into the tooling process, which is generally about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on complexity. So I have plans to return to China, which I haven't been to since the pandemic. And I'm either going to go and review the first test shots or wait a little bit and review the paint samples, which might be a little bit more useful of my time because there'll be, multiple SKUs to kind of give input on. And that's probably a better sort of bang for my buck. So, we're in the end zone. I would say within probably 2 months' time, I will have a pretty good idea of what the final product is going to look like. And then it's just kind of a matter of waiting for the assembly line to kind of complete everything and paint everything. And I would say if we're being optimistic, I can probably start fulfilling late summer, early fall.
Oh, wow.
So,
Nice.
pretty ahead of our initial projection. But again, I always get very hesitant to, who knows? Anything can happen as we've learned in these past 4 or 5 years. So
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. Now, this campaign, you ran this crowdfunding campaign a little bit differently than some of the things you have in the past. Utilizing kind of your own website as the hub, as opposed to using one of kind of the predetermined platforms. What was it like doing it that way?
It's always, you kind of have to, you got to do the math and see what a platform offers you. We've had success on Kickstarter. We've had a couple failures on Kickstarter. And for their services, they do take a pretty significant chunk of your earnings. So we did the Card Slicers campaign, which I think we will probably talk about in a little bit. And we fully funded and then some. However, there was a exceptionally low portion of new customers. There was little to no organic discovery within the Kickstarter platform, which was not the case for our first campaign or any of the subsequent campaigns we did on Kickstarter. Typically, there's a lot of organic discovery, and you're going to walk away with maybe 25% new email addresses that you never had before, people who found your work because of doing it on Kickstarter. When we got to the Card Slicer campaign, which the gaming category on Kickstarter is much bigger than toys is, and there's a much wider customer base to tap into, and they spend a lot more time and focus on gaming campaigns as opposed to something more niche like action figures. To get so little organic discovery and so little new customers on the platform, and then to have to pay out a large percentage of that earning to Kickstarter for that privilege, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So my calculation was, okay, 98% of the backers of this campaign were already customers of mine that I already had the email addresses of. That would probably back any play I did. Is Kickstarter worth the 5, 10, 20% fee that they take. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I kind of decided, no, it's not. If the campaign is going to raise, let's say, $60,000 and Kickstarter is going to take 10% of that, that's a big chunk of money that I could use in the tooling process. I could add additional accessories. I could, have additional features, additional heads. I'm forced to kind of parse things out in this manner. Any money that flows out the door, there has to be a significant reason for that, or a significant long-term goal that that's going to achieve. And when it came to sort of, chopping the pie up for something that was not serving up any new discovery, it didn't make sense. That's not to say I don't like what Kickstarter does. I don't think it's a viable platform. Like I have a lot of respect for them. They have recognized their union. They're playing by the rules. So I think it's a totally suitable and a totally potent platform when it's firing on all cylinders. But I think for me, and being such a niche audience, it makes less and less sense. I would also say there is probably a phenomenon with there being so many more creators on that platform. It is harder to get discovery. That may not be a fault of Kickstarter. That's kind of just the nature of it expanding to be such a big global influence.
Yeah. And we've kind of heard similar things from repeat Kickstarter campaign runners. So
I've kind of noticed it too, where it's like it'll feed you, oh, you backed this. Well, here's this person's new thing. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to learn of anything else from this, but I will definitely the repeat business thing is definitely true.
I think also we're at a moment of contraction within the hobby, and possibly in one that will sort of change the way the hobby is moving forward. I think that the pandemic and the slowdown and the stimulus money, and for the first time, Americans having the opportunity to kind of like be home and be still and like think about things they like and order things online, that understandably inflated this hobby.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think now, and obviously like every toy company rushed to meet that demand, raise prices, some understandably so, others just taking advantage of the situation. And I think now, if you look at, all the quarterly earnings came out, everybody's down. Hasbro was like, it was down 21% or something insane like that. Like, we're at this contraction point. And, I see a lot of people getting out of the hobby. I see a lot of people selling off their collections. But I've been in the industry for over 20 years. I started, I think the year I started, like Palisades went out of business and Art Asylum, it came into some troubles, and all these mid-tier companies that used to exist just were gone within the first couple of years of me coming into the industry. So being in a shrinking universe is nothing new to me, and it's certainly stuff I've seen. There's an ebb and flow to this hobby and to this marketplace. But this seems like a truly sharp contrast. And I don't know that every company is going to be coming out on the other side of this. I think there's going to be some casualties to it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And, I forget where I saw the conversation, but somebody made a really good point. Man, I really wish I could credit this person because it's totally not my idea. But I think one of the things too that, and I'd be curious to see what you think about this, like the idea of kind of scarcity coming back into play in the hobby, right? Because like right now we're at the point where like you could if you want something, you can get it, right? Like there's no real like scarcity on a new release. Things don't sell out in 2 seconds anymore. And if they do, they're readily available, when they actually do come to stores. But
yeah, their only limit is on things that are like, we're only making 1,000 of these.
Yeah. But in terms of like, we all remember when it was like difficult, pre-pandemic to find some things. Like if something was, was really hot, like a particular figure or, item, and it sold out, and that was it. Your only hope was the aftermarket.
And then everything became hot.
Yes. But I'm thinking, and again, the concept that like, you see like the stockpiles of things going to Ollie's and going to, the liquidation stores and everything because, volumes are up and, then those toys are getting sold off and, what's, the retail move, right? Like are retailers going to start to order less? Are they going to start to make more, or make, tighter decisions and things will become more scarce and that will, the hunt, for lack of a better word, will force people out of the hobby because they either can't do it, don't have time to do it.
Like, what does the course correction look like?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what you think about that.
Well, I agree with all that, but I would say, like, we're at a crisis moment in terms of IP, right? Of intellectual property, because there is no new intellectual property. We are at this sort of terminal phase where even nostalgia is kind of running dry for most people. You have a film franchise like Marvel films that is, look, they're still making billions of dollars, but is it well regarded in the same way it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago? No, not even close. I think that, we have forgotten or we have lost the ability to cultivate smaller ideas, smaller creators, as everything kind of gets swallowed into this monolith of global capital. And so the only thing to do is say, what about Thundercats again? What we'll just relaunch everything, So we're also at this kind of suffocating moment in the source of what makes toys, the intellectual property, where there's not a whole hell of a lot that's actually exciting out there. I think I just saw there's a new Hulkbuster Iron Man. Looks great. Looks like one of the best Iron Man figures ever made. I happen to have a dozen Iron Man figures. I don't need any more Iron Man figures. I think there is a real choice that collectors have to make at a certain point. Do I need another one of this same character? Do I need another one of this or that? And there is no course correction for that because we have kind of kneecapped Hollywood's ability to sort of cultivate any new ideas or new IP. We've been solely obsessed with relaunching and rebooting and continuing on the stuff that we grew up with to what I think is a terminal point. The only silver lining I see is that there are still independent creators out there that are making stuff. And with today's technology, you can support those creators directly, through Patreon, through Ko-fi, through their e-commerce, their storefronts. But it's hard to find those creators. It's hard to know where to see new ideas because they're not going to get coverage. They're not going to, they're not getting shared by the algorithm. And I think a lot of these ideas are why I've focused so much of my life to the idea of the Toy Pizza Expo, what used to be called the Toy Pizza Con. The impetus there is to get independent creators into the same room to sort of draw an audience in and get people that would never encounter this stuff in their day-to-day lives, get something exciting and new and fresh in front of them and let them hand $5 to the actual person that made this thing, this character, this custom, this comic book. Like that is the sort of component that's missing in our society. The world of a Hasbro or Mattel live stream that leads you directly to a pre-order page that's going to ship an item 2 days via Amazon to your door. It's convenient, but it's not really pushing any new ideas or anything culturally satisfying. So, I think if I can achieve anything, I can at least kind of pull together the people that I think are making interesting independent ideas and hopefully get a little bit of a spotlight on them.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at Chubsy Wubsy Toys. A traditional mom-and-pop toy store in Little Falls, New Jersey, Chubsy Wubsy Toys brings you the best new toys from the brands you love without the hassle of pounding the pavement searching for them at larger retail stores. Visit them in person at their brand new home at 101 Newark Pompton Turnpike, Suite 1 in Little Falls, New Jersey, or online at chubsywubsy.com. That's CHUBZZYWUBZZY.com. And tell them Adventures in Collecting sent you.
When you visit Arizona, time is measured in moments, not minutes. Like the moment you see the Grand Canyon for the first time. Visit a new state of mind. Learn more at hereyouareaz.com.
And now, back to the show.
Well, speaking of new ideas, before we get even more into Toy Pizza Expo, we mentioned it a little bit before, but you also spun kind of the Toy Pizza brand, if you will, into the world of card slicers. And it was a successful campaign, and the cards are gorgeous. We have a bunch of them between Dave and I. One pack of which you handed to me directly at New York Comic Con, so thank you for that. But what's on the horizon for card slicers?
So card slicers I found works best in a live environment, right? Like when there are people playing it, people start crowding around and start rooting for someone to win, and everybody's watching the dice rolls like we're in a casino. And it's really something that like needs a live setting to be fully comprehended and appreciated. I've cut down the amount of shows I set up at to just one, just Toy Pizza Expo. So I've not had as much of a tour schedule as I have in previous years where I could sort of get out in front of people and share card slicers and show the gameplay and stuff. Convincing somebody that how to play a game through videos or streams or things like that, it's not an ideal setting. It works for, if it's your only option. But I think when you have the excitement of a grudge match going on and you have a tournament going on and like this guy needs to roll a 6 and then the game's over and he's got the dice in his hand, like that is what I think the most exciting and impressive part of the card slicers game is. So because I haven't been going to shows and setting up and things like that, I've decided to kind of hold everything for Toy Pizza Expo. We're going to do another tournament game this year. But there have been pretty consistently cards offered through my Patreon in various pre-orders and things like that. And then also, I have the action figure of the Millennia Club, which sends out a parcel every 2 months or so. And there's usually always card slicers sort of including that. The other thing is, again, looking at campaign numbers for the card slicer campaign, that's almost exclusively made up of people that are already my patrons. So I don't know how much outreach I need to concern myself with versus just keeping that core alpha customer group happy and keep the cards flowing to them. It's I'm still learning this as I go. So,
well, always looking forward to the designs on those new cards, and
yeah, for sure,
they're always good looking.
Thank you.
So, as of Saturday, right? That was the live stream on Secret Galaxy. You recently revealed an exclusive piece with Dan Larson of Secret Galaxy. Tell us more about that collaboration.
That was a crazy live stream. I cannot believe that event happened while we were streaming. That was it's unreal. Everybody go watch the playback because I think that's like that's in a top 10 blooper reel right there.
It is an all timer, as they say.
There it is.
Truly is. This is one of the many things, one of the many points that's sort of intersecting at Toy Pizza Expo. And Dan and I have been talking for a very long time. I love Toy Galaxy. And I think, in many ways, Toy Galaxy sort of perfected the Toy Pizza formula. And Dan and Greg were able to endure and succeed in an environment that we couldn't have, or we didn't want to, or maybe a little bit of both. So I've always looked at Toy Galaxy as like, yeah, if I, in an alternate universe, that would have been what I think Toy Pizza would have done. Life had other ideas about that, but I think it's a fantastic program. And Dan, much like myself, has scores and scores of drawings from when he was a kid of costume characters and superheroes. And much like many of the Knights of the Slice characters are, based on drawings I had when I was a kid, so too are we bringing that reality to Dan and his galaxy of creation. So super excited that we were able to do that. I'm also very pleased that timing is allowing for this figure to debut at TPE. It was really a question for a little while if it was going to arrive in time, but I think pretty confidently it will be there on June 16th. So it's just great. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Dan gets it. He's a natural at toy design. He asks the right questions. He puts in a lot of time and a lot of work. And it's great. I hope we get to continue making his childhood characters.
Yeah, it's super cool. We're huge fans as well, and he is just like one of the nicest people ever.
Yeah, just an absolutely great human being.
Great, super tall human being.
Yes, very tall man.
Shouts to Dan.
I did witness him push down a senior citizen at Foxwoods Casino in Connecticut because he knocked her over. Her cup of coins spilled everywhere, and he said, "That's a hot machine. That's my machine." But other than that, he's been, generally pretty nice when he's sober. So yeah, I agree 100%. When he's not coming down, great guy.
Well, we've mentioned it several times. Your annual event, the event formerly known as Toy Pizza Con, now Toy Pizza Expo. It's moved. It has a new venue. Changed the name. What led to all of these exciting changes, and what's going to set this expo apart from the previous Toy Pizza Cons?
Great question. So, convention that elicits certain visions in our head, right? You think of Javits Center, you think of San Diego Comic-Con, you think of old hot dogs on the roller, an overpriced Sprite, a $12 bottle of water, no Artist Alley,
a Ryobi booth.
yeah, the Ryobi booth.
Long lines to get in.
Yeah. Bathroom just in shambles and a line outside the bathroom. I wanted to create the anti-Comic-Con. And I think over the past couple of years, we've done that, but having the name Con is still a bit of baggage, right? What I hope this show is morphed into is something like the World's Fair, where all these different nations are coming together with all these wonderful ideas and technologies. And, we outgrew our really wonderful hosts at Happy Valley. We did the past two shows there. I know, I think somebody was on a cruise last year, but generally you guys do attend. And it's a wonderful vintage arcade, great outdoor area, but we bring a crowd and it gets pretty crowded, pretty hot, and we just outgrew Happy Valley. There was far too much foot traffic to kind of do it right. I famously the past 2 years have been setting up my booth the entire show like trying to just find a couple seconds to like unpack boxes and things like that. It was just untenable. So I started looking around Beacon and other venues, and I went to a event at the Yard, and I was like, this place is perfect. You may remember last year we sort of did the show, and then we had the after party at Quinn's, a bar down the road, and my band played and stuff like that. That was 2 different locations, separate gear needed for both locations, setups required for both locations. Just way too much to do. I needed to find a single location. I needed a location that could handle over 100 people. And the Yard was just absolutely perfect for it. I sat down with the people that run the place, and I said, I want to make the anti-Comic-Con, and I want to have local artists, and I want to have independent artists. I don't want any corporations involved. I don't want any, Ryobi sponsorships. Like I just want to bring this community together of people that don't get a spotlight, people that don't get foot traffic, that can't get an artist alley table at Javits, and the idea clicked with them, and they've been really wonderful and generous with helping us kind of bring this to fruition. So I guess, it's going to be bigger. It's going to be better this year. The performance area that the Yard has upstairs is one of the best places to see live music. They're just such a professional outfit, and it's going to blow people away. It's going to seem unrecognizable from the past couple of years, and I think in many, many different positive ways.
That's awesome, and I'm assuming will there be any other bands outside of Zed Star 7, or is that's the only musical act for the expo this year?
So we're kind of spinning plates with we have a really wonderful podcast, WFYM. I think they're the funniest people on the internet, and they're doing their first ever live show. We have a question as to whether or not we add a second show for them, or if we figure something else out. So it's kind of an open question at this point, but I think generally, my band ZStar 7 will close out the show. That's kind of the after party after, things start to wind down. We will probably be joined on stage by various musicians and collaborators and things like that. But yeah, it's tough to. There are certainly bands I would love to have play there and have spoken to, but I think our day is going to be fully packed as it is. So, bit of an open question at this moment.
Yeah, very cool. Although I am going to miss the toy and pizza conference sign.
Yes, that's the other thing. I would love our convention name to be correct on our sign one of these years. Might happen this year.
Every year I added a picture of that to the slideshow.
Toy. At least
it's different every year.
At least it didn't say toy and or pizza.
Yeah. I think I can only assume the second year they were having a laugh, but that's okay.
So we talk about, old traditions, new traditions. One of the big traditions, though, of Toy Pizza Expo, what is now Toy Pizza Expo, are new exclusive figures. Are there any exclusives that we can talk about for this year's con or for this year's Expo? Aside from what we've already mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. As usual, I will have a bundle of exclusives available. Members of my Patreon will get the opportunity to pre-order these, and then whatever's left over will be brought to the show. And if anything's left over from that, they will go up on the web store probably the week after. But what I've found that works is a bundle of figures that's roughly about $200, $195, around there. And as you guys know, like when you get a parcel from me, it's jam packed. There is tons of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Part of the experience of Knights of the Slice, and I think really Glyos in general, is you get a lot of bang for your buck, and you get a lot of cross compatibility, a lot of accessories, a lot of like different looks and builds that you can do right out of the box. So this year's exclusive bundle is going to blow people away. There are new pieces that are debuting that have never been seen before that I'm not going to sort of showcase ahead of time. So there's going to be genuine surprise for people that attend the show or that are members of the Patreon or that, procure themselves these exclusives. I'm, to give a little teaser, there will be a Gauss armor that is part of this bundle. I think everybody wants more Gauss, and I have a really great one lined up. And for those that kind of follow the lore of Knights of the Slice, which is a daunting task, there is, 10 years worth of comics and postcards and videos. There are several sort of characters and plot points that get wrapped up with this bundle that will be very meaningful to those that kind of drink the Kool-Aid on a regular basis.
Very cool. Well,
yeah. And I could say the 2 years ago was Perfect Diver.
Oh yeah, it's still,
that's correct. Yes,
that's still my favorite. Honestly,
mine too.
I love that figure.
That's so great.
It's a hard one to beat for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like putting the different pieces on. I think right now I'm trying to see which piece I have on his helmet. I think I have the little O-ring sticking out of, or a little eye bolt or whatever you call it, sticking out of the top of his helmet.
And I just remember too, and Eric being like, you could pay me back, I'll get you one too. And I'm like, okay, yeah.
Well, I'll go a bit further with the spoilers here and say that there is part of the new parts that people will encounter is a modification to Diver. Ooh. So there's going to be a brand new sort of look and repertoire of parts that will go along with your favorite figure. So
exciting. Very exciting.
Nice.
So from traditions on on the Toy Pizza experience out in the world, the expo, to traditions here on this show. As you know, all of our guests, we have a final question that we ask all of them. As a returning guest, we have prepared an alternate final question for you. So Dave, would you like to fulfill your role as this podcast's James Lipton and ask our alternate final question?
Why, yes, I would. So, Jesse, as you've already answered our final question that we ask all of our guests, we've prepared a new final question. Your new final question is, if you could incorporate any band or musician into Knights of the Slice, who would it be and what would their character be?
Am I allowed to say Zed Star 7? I'm not, am I?
I mean, you absolutely
It's already been incorporated, so... I would say, look, I was a teen in the 90s, so nothing will ever be cooler than Nine Inch Nails to me. And I think that still holds up.
Right on.
I would put Radiohead at a second there. But, you could do Trent throughout the ages. There's a great toy line that could be built just by all his different, look, you do the Perfect Drug. Yeah. Actually, my character, Cray Drake from Sea of Daggers, a good portion of his influence and look and things like that was Trent Reznor in the Perfect Drug Lost Highway era. So I guess maybe it already exists in some respects. But yeah, and look, there's not a hell of a lot of bands that are still relevant and producing stuff at the level Trent Reznor still is. Oh, yeah. You could argue possibly Radiohead and Tom York, but I think Trent's ability to also score films and that whole career he's had, unmatched. You try to listen to Def Leppard or Kiss or, any of these other legacy bands, they kind of were locked in place at the moment they were most famous, and they never really evolved beyond that. I think maybe somebody like David Bowie's probably an anomaly within that ilk. But, I just think Nine Inch Nails, they're still killing it. I've seen them a bunch of times live. Every time is amazing.
Yeah.
They're still making relevant, different, dangerous music. I'm sure this sounds like, when my brother would talk about hair metal bands to me, and I'm just like, oh my God, like it's over, man. But I still stand by it. I think that's, it doesn't get better than that.
You're in good company, because that's literally one of our favorite bands as well. I mean, my wife and I, that's our favorite band together. We actually,
my fiance and I have gone out to Las Vegas to see them when we thought it was going to be the only U.S. show, and then went to Radio City when it wasn't. So
we've seen them a bunch of times too. But if you haven't watched it yet, I think it's either it's on YouTube. It's either, I forget which channel. It's either Variety or
I thought it was either Vanity Fair or GQ.
Vanity Fair. It might be Vanity Fair. But him and Atticus sat down for like 25, almost 30 minutes, going through kind of like the course of Nine Inch Nails and the scores. And it was a very like transparent interview. I haven't heard them talk like that together kind of ever, honestly. Very good. If you haven't listened to it, anyone out there listening in the ether, if you are a Nine Inch Nails fan or Trent Reznor fan, I can't recommend it enough. It is, fabulous.
Somebody should give him a Red Bull before he talks. So he is like,
he's a mellow.
He's like down here.
Yeah, like come on. Yeah, I feel like a little bit of it is a persona, but it's probably him too. But like, have a sip of black tea, get a little caffeine going through your blood.
It's crazy too, because like if
you're talking to Rick Rubin, like be excited. Come on, man, give me a little energy.
If you've ever, if you've not had the chance to see them live, the person sitting uncomfortably on a stool being interviewed is like the complete polar opposite of the man screaming lyrics that had like a hole at you on stage.
Yeah.
It couldn't possibly be more different.
Trent's another 5'7" king. Absolutely. He's the shorter the rocker, like the more they bring. Danzig's like 5'3", Maynard James Keenan probably 5'7". Like there's something to it.
Yeah. The little tiny but dangerous.
Tom York is 6'5".
Is he really?
No, he's
he's
probably 5'7".
Jeez. All right.
I was gonna say Russell Mail's tall though, and he still does the dance. So
yeah, I mean those guys got it.
Ron
Talk about still relevant. I saw those guys in L.A. They were filming for the documentary. Holy shit! Like Sparks, another band that like has just continued to transform. Like we should be so lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, I know we talk about them every time we're in the same room, but like Russell's still up there jumping up and down. Ron comes out and does the dance in between number one song. And
we're
number one in heaven.
He was really hoping that mustache was going to come back in style, and it never did. It hasn't since the 30s. Never.
Now he's got the John Waters.
Yeah,
he's got the John Waters.
He's ride or die though. That's it at this point. I mean, he's fully committed. So nothing but respect.
But
there.
like so prolific, yeah.
Well, Jesse, thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening. But before we let you go, remind our listeners, remind everyone out there, where can they find you on the internet, and when and where can they go to Toy Pizza Expo?
Absolutely. So the best place, if any of this stuff is remotely interesting, I would say join patreon.com/Jesse DeStasio. You will get more of these wonderful, unsolicited thoughts of mine. There's a weekly podcast, which you can submit questions to. I do a lot of music videos, a lot of toy videos, like a little bit of everything. It's a multimedia extravaganza. So patreon.com/Jesse DeStasio. You can also follow Toy Pizza on Instagram. I think we're just at Toy Pizza. You can check out my band if you like people that rip off Nine Inch Nails wholesale. Just look up ZStar7. It's on Spotify. It's on all streaming platforms. And then Toy Pizza Expo is June 16th in Beacon, New York at the Yard. If you go to toypizza.com, you can get to our landing page and get all the details for that. It's going to be a hell of a time. And while there are ticketed events throughout the day, it's free to attend. You can come into the courtyard. You can play card slicers. You can buy stuff from the vendors. Free for everybody. That was another important thing that the yard really believed in doing. So there's not a lot of free stuff out there that's gonna be worth it, but this is one of them.
Well, awesome. We'll make sure to put links to all of those things in the show notes. That way, if you're anything like me and your brain is equivalent to a goldfish, you don't have to remember any of that. You can just go to the show notes, click on all the links, do the whole follow, subscribe thing, and definitely make sure that you, if you are in the area or plan on being in the area, the weekend of June 16th, definitely head out to Beacon, New York and the Yard to check out Toy Pizza Expo. Jesse, thanks again for stopping by.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Dave, send us home.
Toy Pizza Expo, everybody.
Thank you, dear listener, for hanging out with us today. Subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen, and then tell your friends to do it. Thanks also to Joe Azari, the golden voice behind our intro. Our music is Game Boy Horror by the Zombie Dandies. Find more about them both in our show notes.
Follow us on social media at AIC_podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Stop by and say hi, show us your toy hauls, and share your toy stories. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode.
Don't try this at home. Void where prohibited and some assembly required. Each sold separately, not a flying toy. Consult a physician if your toy run exceeds more than 4 hours.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.